everyone. This is Mike Sheppard, General Counsel for Professional Educators of Tennessee. Happy to have you with us tonight. We are going to talk about evaluations and non-renewals, hopefully help you with a proactive approach to both. A little background on myself. I am General Counsel for Professional Educators of Tennessee. I have been a Vice President and General Counsel of a number of insurance companies over the years, and been with professional educators for I think about 5 years now. I'm an education lawyer, Army brat by lineage, have lived all over the world, and glad to be in Tennessee for the last 20 years. Love my work, love serving teachers, and with me tonight is Samantha Bates, our Director of Member Services. Samantha, would you like to say a few words about yourself?
My background is not quite as interesting. I've lived all over Tennessee. I was a middle school teacher for 5 years. I've been a board member for professional educators, and now, like Mike said, I'm the Director of Member Services, so I do a lot of things, including recruiting and sometimes intaking for our legal department. If you have any questions during this broadcast, you can ask questions using the questions pane, or you can using the chat tab, but I think the questions pane is a little bit better. If you raise your hand, that won't do anything. So be sure to actually type out the question for us.
And we'll stop and answer your question as we receive it. So let's get on into the presentation. And
the first thing you should know about evaluations and non-renewals is you're going to be nervous, and like Willie Mae said, if you're not nervous, you probably don't care.
And those of you who are not baseball fans, the message still holds. So let's talk about evaluation for a while. The formal appraisal of an employee consists of classroom observations, student assessment data, student surveys, and teacher surveys, and that involves administrators only. I don't know if we have any administrators online, but Professional Educators does have administrators as members, and you know, so this is not just for teachers, this is for educators. So we want to make that clear up front, that everyone can learn more in the area of evaluation. We get calls every day from both administrators and teachers regarding the law that is applicable to that area, but also how to solve issues, misunderstandings, lack of communication. And so we encourage everyone at the beginning to remember that the cornerstone of evaluation is communication. So you want to talk about observations?
Yeah, typically when teachers and administrators call us to talk about evaluations, they're actually just talking about the observation piece of it. And I'm not going to read the slide to you, but there are a lot of different types of observations, and most of these have state definitions. But if I were going to describe the observations in order of importance as far as employment goes, I would say that the professionalism category is the most important, followed by planning and environment as regarding the culture of the classroom, and then the least important for employment rights would be instruction and environment, physical setup. And that's not to say that the instruction category is not important, because certainly it is. I'm just saying I've never had a teacher call me and say, I got a dismissal notice because my classroom setup is not what my administrator likes, or because I didn't give enough wait time. If a charge is going to be brought against a teacher, it's going to be because they are unprofessional or because their classroom culture is negative. It's very unlikely it's going to actually involve the instruction part of it.
Most of the calls we get are that, so I think you've got a list that applies to what to look for and understand in, you know, where you can succeed and fail in the area of professionalism. One is professional growth, performance improvement, promotion of school district and community, being policy-minded, and supporting your peers. You want to talk a little bit more about what we hear on a daily basis in those areas, because I know a lot of what we receive are things that have been going on for a while. And one of the things we talk about here at Professional Educators is talking about these things before they become a problem and before they're reduced to writing and before they become an actual report in your file. So policy-minded, what does that mean to you, Samantha? And what would that mean to the educator?
Well, as far as what the rubric says, I think it's worded that that the teacher should regularly adhere to school and district personnel policies. It's just, do you follow the rules?
Okay.
Because the opposite of that would mean that you are not following district policies or school rules, and that makes you a liability.
All right. So, I mean, when new policies come down and new procedures and processes come down, you're able to adapt and adhere and conform to those policies, and more importantly, understand their purpose. And if you don't understand the purpose, you ought to ask.
Absolutely.
Right? Right?
Yeah. And so you can see, I looked at the exceedingly below expectations side of the rubric, and I just want you to think for a moment, in any profession, if you don't use feedback, if you don't show up on time, if you're not prepared, if you won't help your coworkers, you know, if you disparage your company in public, I mean, in no profession is that acceptable. So, of course, it wouldn't be for a teacher.
Yeah, and as a manager, those of us that have been in management in the business arena, it's, like you said, it's the same thing. You know, I mean, if when I was a manager, I mean, people that got along with their colleagues were of great value to me and the company. But if they didn't, and they didn't make an effort to work things out at the lowest level possible, which means, you know, if you have a problem with somebody, you know, find out why, communicate, and that's teamwork. I mean, we're not going to agree on everything every day, and there's going to be people that tread in our areas of responsibility, and sometimes you have to say, wait a minute, that's my job. And if somebody's being critical, you know, or possibly disruptive in your life, you know, maybe a one-on-one meeting is better than using a policy, for example. I mean, this is human nature, a lot of it is. So I guess the preparation's a huge one that you know, very, very important. I mean, being unprepared, and again, this is from the viewpoint of the evaluator. If you are unprepared, it tends to give the impression that you don't care and that you're disengaged from the teaching environment. So again, we're not talking about the fact that that's always true. Sometimes there could be some huge miscues here where you were prepared or somebody's evaluations is wrong, and we run into that as well. So we're not trying to give you a bunch of rules just to say follow all this and you'll be okay, because sometimes, despite all the rules, we get some, you know, off the chart, you know, unreasonable evaluations that should be looked at again. So any questions from anyone at this point? Well, feel free to chat any questions back to us. So.
And it's important to note that if you do have an issue with an evaluation, that state law has required every district to develop a policy so that teachers can address inaccurate data in evaluations. I want to say whatever that means.
But there is a method, there is a way to do that, and we need to make that probably a separate kind of.
Yeah, the only thing is that every district is different. Like, for instance, Metro Nashville, it's just a grievance. You just file a grievance.
So it's all different.
It's all different.
But it is required by state law
Yes.
that you have some procedure for addressing a difference of opinion in evaluations. So.
Yeah. And honestly, the best way to address a difference in opinion is to talk, to have a discussion. You know, what did you see? Why is this number like this? You know, it's an evaluation, an observation is supposed to be a conversation. That's why there's a required pre- and post-conference. It's so that you don't just get a bunch of numbers and you're on your own.
Yeah, I guess the thing that bothers us most as professionals on this end of the phone line is if the teacher does not have an idea of what's going on, or the administrator, or whoever's being evaluated has no idea where they stand, we find that there's a disconnect, and this piece of paper is dropped in front of you, and suddenly you go, wait a minute, I don't agree with that 2 or that 1. So, interaction and discourse and communication is absolutely key. So the first, and that can be generated from the teacher to the administrator or the evaluator, or from the evaluator to the evaluator-tee. I don't think there's such words.
The teacher, the evaluated
Well, it could
person.
be an administrator who's being evaluated.
The evaluated person.
The evaluated person. I don't think that's a legal term either, but it sounds good. You want to go on to the
Yes.
next?
So the timing of a dismissal and the professionalism rubric is interesting. Currently, by state law, by June 15th, a district must notify teachers of dismissal or non-renewal. And professionalism rubrics should not be completed until all testing is finished. That's not to say that if you're going to be dismissed, you'll know on June 15th. If you're going to be dismissed, only the worst administrator would wait until the very last possible moment to let you know, by the way, we're not happy with your performance and you're going to have to go. That would be the worst way to do it.
We see that with non-renewals more than we do dismissals.
Yes. Yes.
And we don't like that either, really.
No.
Because we have a lot of seasoned teachers that change districts, or they've been around a while, or even new teachers probably need to know where they need to improve. Again, sometimes it's budget issues, and really often they don't have to give a reason. But I guess stepping back for a minute, what Samantha's saying is, make sure that you look at your local policy and know your local policy for evaluations and what your outlet is for, discussing it procedurally, but don't rely on that totally. The best advice is to address it as early as possible. And
we don't hear, I've had great observations all year and now I have a dismissal notice. That doesn't happen. What we hear are things like, my principal is in my room every day. My principal is scheduling meetings with me every week. Administrators typically will not put this off. If there is an issue, they'll address it. And many times it's documentation on their part to show that there has been an issue and that your non-renewal or your dismissal is warranted. But the best administrators, it's to address an issue so you're a better teacher.
And we do operate as advocates for our members when they do get into situations where the evaluation process is broken down and where there's been a misunderstanding, or occasionally we will get a situation where suddenly you have a pattern of review scores and all of a sudden there's a change of leadership and there's a change of the evaluator, and suddenly the rules seem to have changed, and there's nothing more concerning to an educator than to go home at night and not know what they're doing wrong, or what they're doing right. because we're huge advocates of respecting and valuing our teachers, and we try to stress the importance of walking around, finding our teachers doing and educators doing things right instead of, always being putative, so
So there are two types of dismissal in Tennessee Code. The first is a dismissal with charge, and then the second would be a reduction in force. Dismissal with charges means that one of these 5 things, or heaven forbid more than one of these 5 things, is affecting performance: incompetence, inefficiency, neglect of duty, insubordination, and unprofessional conduct. And true to form, these are actually defined in the code. Incompetence means you are incapable of performing your duties. You lack the power to, or the capacity or the ability. In 2 different ways it says that this can be physical, mental, educational, emotional, or some other unfitness. So when you see incompetence, usually you think mental capacity, but it's not limited to that. It can also encompass lack of training, inability to get respect from your students, or cooperation from your coworkers. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say we get a lot of that when we have, and it's got to be a balancing act. Some teachers send students to the office, and they've got a real hostile environment, and sometimes they get negative feedback in the form of, well, what are you doing? Are you controlling your students? So sometimes it's both sides have to get together and understand how to resolve the situation, especially if these students are going regularly. There may be some very good reasons for the educator to be doing that. So
we got inefficiency. It's literally defined as below the standards of efficiency. That could be tardiness, inaccuracy, or ineffective, and that includes teacher effect data at a 1 or 2 level, which would be below expectations or significantly below expectations. To calm some people's nerves, this means that all of your observations, achievement data, and growth scores would have to be either a 1 or 2 for the year. So everything would be below expectations to get an average of a 2.
any questions at this point? Or comments?
Don't have
or
any questions.
examples that anyone would like to bring up? Okay.
Don't have any.
Neglect of duty, I guess, is probably fairly serious. I would say it's more obvious than the other ones, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it would be hard to argue neglect of duty. You didn't show up. You didn't do your job. You weren't there. That is neglect of duty.
You don't do lesson plans. You don't show up. So measuring that's a little easier, I think, under 49.5018. And we'll add here, if you really want to fall asleep quickly at night, you can look all these statutes up under Section 49 of the Tennessee Code Annotated, which is online under Lexis. Just type in Tennessee Code Annotated and it'll pop up. But anyway, we're trying to just kind of resurrect the most important portions of those statutes.
Yes. You could also be charged with insubordination, which obviously means you didn't do something you were told to do, like obey laws, rules, or your principal gave you an assignment and you refused to do it. It also means you didn't go to in-service training, treason, and refusing to disclose ties to the Communist Party to your principal or director.
That's still in the statute.
That's still in the statute. So,
treason or government sabotage. It looks as though maybe someone hasn't looked at that statute in a while, although both of those are important, I guess. It just seems like it was from, a long time ago.
McCarthy era.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very outdated wording. Not that it's, the refusal to obey laws, rules, regs, and board policy makes sense, and failure to participate in service training. I don't know that I've ever heard of a teacher involved in treason. Do you? Have you?
No.
In the last few years, or having been charged with being associated with the Communist Party?
No, but I will say Tennessee is very serious about communism. This is, it references the Communist Party at least 3 times in
Really?
education law.
Does it really? Huh.
And then the last one, conduct unbecoming to a member of the teaching profession. That includes immorality, felony conviction or convicted of a crime of moral turpitude, which results in the immediate suspension of your position, and the director has to email the commissioner to get your license revoked. Dishonesty, unreliability, continued and willful failure to pay one's just and honest debts, which I guess could extend to bankruptcy. I don't know. And then this is my personal favorite wording. Disregard for professional ethics so that members of your profession find it obnoxious. And, of course, drug and alcohol abuse.
Well, the immorality and the felony conviction or crime of moral turpitude, felony convictions are pretty clear.
Yeah.
Aggravated assault, embezzlement, things of that sort can be felonies. Crimes of moral turpitude, that could range from involving children, or it could it may be involve lying. It could range from that. I mean, then it goes on to talk about dishonesty. In disregard for professional ethics, I don't think that's very well worded, just between you and me. Do you?
Well, anybody's going to stick communism in there 3 times.
To an obnoxious degree. I'm not sure what that means. And drug or alcohol abuse makes perfect sense, but I'm really going to look at these last 2 statutes and see if they're under review, because they're not worded very well. They're not drafted very well. So.
Well, that's never stopped a politician before, but.
That's right. So maybe we need to look into that.
Yeah. But as far as immorality goes, remember that that's the morality of the director and the school board, and this would be the charge if someone were going to be fired because of something they posted online, or something
Internet gets them in trouble sometimes.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's what you were bringing up before, right?
Yes.
So, hey folks, be careful with the Internet. Just even emails, social media. We've had separate presentations on those before, so.
They're very good.
Yeah, they are.
I made them.
Did you really?
Yeah. So the process for dismissal with charges, always check your local board policy, because they will definitely have additions to the state law. But succinctly, directors can suspend teachers for time to investigate the charges. If no criminal charges are filed, and if there's no investigation by police or DCS, the suspension cannot exceed 90 days. And once you're vindicated or reinstated, you will be compensated, so it would really be paid leave more than suspension at that point. If they do find reason to dismiss you, the director must present the charges to the school board in writing and give the specific reason, and give evidence to the school board. If the board does decide to dismiss the teacher, the director gives the teacher the written notice of the dismissal with a copy of the charges, and then the notice of their legal duties, rights, and recourse. And we'll go over the legal duties, rights, and recourse in a minute. For reductions in staff, the reductions, according to the code, are to be based on evaluation. So if you're a level 3 teacher, if you're being reduced or your position's being abolished, level 1 and 2 teachers have to go before you. So it is based on evaluations. In that situation, the board gives written notice of dismissal explaining the circumstances, and level 3, 4, and 5 teachers whose positions are abolished will be placed on a reemployment list for the district until you're reemployed with the district or you refuse 4 bona fide offers. And those offers have to be with similar positions. So if you were a middle school English teacher, they can't say, well, we've got a bus driver job open. It has to be a similar position.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a classroom position, it may not be a classroom position you want, but it would be another classroom position. Now, tenured teachers, if they're dismissed with charge, they have 30 days to request a hearing, and then either party can appeal the hearing, and then either party can appeal in Chancery Court after that. If you are non-tenured, check your board policy. That's not to say you don't have any recourse. That's to say the state doesn't give you any recourse. I don't think I've found a board policy yet that doesn't have some wording. I looked up one today, and it essentially gave the same wording from the state statute to non-tenured teachers that tenured teachers had, which I thought was nice because they didn't have to do that.
Well, we argue that there should be some application of the laws to non-tenured as well, and there used to be more for non-tenured, but they've kind of I guess I would have to say diluted those rights over the years, and we're still an advocate that teachers that have not reached tenure should have some sort of notice and not maybe the same appeal rights, but at least some avenue to contest or follow up on that. So, but checking your board policy is real important.
So we want the proactive approach. The first thing, you should communicate with your administrators and any other supervisor. Communication is the key to resolving any issue. Ask questions of your evaluator and your observers if you don't understand an evaluation. Even if, when you get the evaluation sheet, even if it's just, what is this category? So it might be standards and objectives. There are 3 different criteria under standards and objectives. So you might be thinking, well, I had my standards posted, but that may not be why they marked you down. So ask questions if you don't understand observations. Document, contact us, and then document some more.
You call us early too. Don't wait too long to call us. The fortunate and the benefits that we provide are not only insurance that applies to many situations, but we do have a very qualified staff that has experience in different areas. It's not all legal. It's about administration. It is about merging those two, and it is about finding ways to resolve issues. Some of you that are online right now may have had some very, very protracted situations in your career when the wrong person has evaluated you or has just not appreciated what you've done or your development. So sometimes it's a matter of reaching that common ground early, and that avoids a lot of problems down the road. So being proactive, we would encourage you to talk early, talk to us early, seek guidance, interact with the evaluator as soon as possible, or during observations. Following observations, we find it's a good idea to talk with the evaluator, and most of you do, but sometimes things get written down without discussion or buy-in from the person being evaluated, and sometimes I think that causes problems. So, what's the next?
So here are some things to not do. Don't overreact. A 2 or a 1 in a category on an observation really is not the end of the world. Yes, it hurts, but that is not a cause to dismiss you. Don't discuss sensitive situations with peers. Your supervisors will not be impressed. Your peers will probably not be impressed either.
All right.
Your peers are probably not lawyers. They probably don't have as much experience with the evaluation and observation process, so they probably can't give you the best advice. So, don't confuse a shoulder to cry on with a good place to go for advice, because they're not the same thing.
And it gets out. It does.
It
gets
does.
out, and people talk, and suddenly the evaluator is involved, and you're off and running with a kind of a personal situation,
Mm-hmm.
which you really don't want to have. So
don't overreact. I really can't state that one enough. And don't become hostile. There are times when teachers feel targeted. We've had a situation where a teacher wanted to know if her observer could do a certain practice, and the answer was yes. It was something that the administrator could make a decision on to do the observation that way, and while the teacher felt slighted and didn't feel like it was very fair, the administrator was within her rights to do the observation that way. And I think once she talked to us and we kind of worked through it and I showed her what the state's policy on that was, she calmed down. But she did feel targeted, and she wanted to not retaliate. I don't know what the best word is, but it definitely was not feeling like being a good employee for the time being, and that's not helpful.
Mm-hmm. If you have any questions regarding this presentation or anything relative to education or your school or any of our law talks, our website and our email are on the screen. We'd be happy to help you, and please come back to our other law talks.
Thank you for attending our webinar. I invite you to check out our website, www.proedtn.org, and check out our free educator resources that we update on a monthly basis. Thank you, and please join us for future webinars.